We live in a carbon culture, a culture where pumping carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere is not only normal, but accepted. As the amount of these gases in our atmosphere increases, the greenhouse effect will continue to cause a dangerous increase in Earth's temperature. This is not just a local or even national issue, but a global crisis. A global crisis that will affect everyone and everything on the planet. A global crisis that has already affected hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people across the world. The British countryside. Blue, or more commonly grey skies. Grass pasture stretching as far as the eye can see. The air untarnished by the fumes of traffic. Here, global warming seems a million miles away. A distant problem to worry about another time. But actually, it's not as distant as it may seem. In rural areas like this, farms are a common sight. While fossil fuels are mostly to blame for human greenhouse gas production, meat has a much more significant role to play than many people think. In fact, the FAO have reported that 14.5% of anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions are produced by livestock. This highlights just how significant the contribution of meat production is. If we want to address global warming, we need to make dramatic improvements to the sustainability of the meat industry. But is this really such a big deal?
A dire warning this morning from climate experts.
The UN panel says governments around the world must take climate change can reach crisis levels in a decade.
Or else millions
Essentially, the report says the Earth is on its way to reaching
wildfires raging where they normally don't, like Arctic Sweden.
We are already 2/3 of the way there.
Today's landmark report should leave you in no doubt about the links between extreme weather and climate change.
Sure, my name's James. I'm the Director of Partnerships at eMission. And what do? Well, we're trying to get people to think about the environmental impact of the food that they eat. So it's thinking about the emissions from farm, I suppose, to fork, to the plate. So there's emissions at every stage of that and a whole host of different factors that actually notch up a really serious percentage of your sort of annual personal carbon footprint. It can be pretty much 20 to 30% depending on the person. So it's got a real role to play in how we decarbonise society.
My name's Tom, I'm the Technical Director at eMission. I've seen climate change in action every year. I was involved in 2014 in the evacuation of a farm and I kind of realised that actually that's going to happen to people next. And every time I go back the water is receding to a lesser extent, and actually that's one of those places where sea level rises is very visible, and things like that, you know, for people in Kiribati and Bangladesh, that's already their reality. You know, a lot of these places are becoming uninhabitable because of the effects of climate change. In Bangladesh last year, there was uproar when the government dug 2,000 preemptive mass graves for the annual heat wave they get every year. And by the end of the year, those graves were overflowing with the bodies of 5,000 people, and they were having to transport people up to the hills to keep the bodies cool. So they made the caves into morgues because they simply didn't have enough graves to bury people, because so many people were sadly dying. That's the reality of climate change today.
If we're trying to move to a situation when we're not trading food around the globe unnecessarily, with beef coming from Britain, you know, to Britain from South America, and beef going from Britain to South America, which is actually what's happening at the moment, which is a very ludicrous thing in a way in terms of, you know, food miles and all the emissions associated with that. If we're trying to move towards a situation where we reduce carbon impact by moving towards local food as much as we can, then that brings another whole dimension to this debate. I've had some meetings with ministers recently, particularly in relation to a campaign I've been running to try to save small abattoirs from closing. So the whole concept of local food is based around reducing food miles for environmental reasons. and therefore you need an abattoir that's not too far away from your farm. Now, most meat in this country is just transported very large distances. The supermarkets tend to have only 1 or 2 abattoirs each. Tesco's got 3, one in Scotland, one in South Wales, one in Cornwall. So every animal that Tesco sells goes to one of those 3 abattoirs. So if they're buying animals from the north of England or from the east coast of England, then they're going to have several hundred food miles associated with the transport of the live animals, and then several hundred miles again associated with the transport of the meat. So each single beef burger or each single steak or whatever pound of mince has gone an awful long journey to get sometimes right back to the local community where it came from.
So what's the solution? How can we fix this issue before its impacts are irreversible? We surveyed 140 people across a wide demographic asking about their meat-eating habits, but when asked if they were aware of meat's contribution to climate change, quite a significant portion were either only somewhat informed or completely unaware of the issue.
If people are aware of the environmental impact of certain food or of the carbon emissions associated with that food, then yes, they will make a change. The key issue is perhaps around education to start with, because you need to be aware that there is an issue there to be able to do something about it.
An environmental impact rating, or EI, to be displayed on all food packaging, starting with meat, would allow customers to make informed purchasing decisions and pick products which cause the least harm to the environment. At the same time, producers will be incentivized to adopt sustainable farming practices in order to improve the EI of their products and attract consumers. Its design will be both aesthetic and simple, using bright colours which make it easy to read. Products with 4.5 to 5 stars, indicating a very low environmental impact, will have their stars coloured green. Products with 0 to 1 stars, indicating a more damaging EI, will have their stars coloured red. Orange and yellow stars will be used to represent the intermediate star ratings of 1.5 to 2.5 and 3 to 4 respectively.
I think it's giving people an indication of the extent to which what they're eating is going to impact on the environment. So this will actually be a really...
We've done a restaurant trial in Birmingham. When people were presented with the carbon emissions of their main meals, then the emissions 1 week on the next fell by 28%. So it's early stage, but it does demonstrate that people are starting to pay attention, and yes, I believe that if it's scaled, then it will demonstrate some real change.
Eventually, we want it to become a cultural norm that you check the EI, with all food products carrying an indication of their impact. There is a growing demand for sustainable products, and consumers have increasingly high expectations regarding the environmental awareness of the companies producing the things they buy. We aim to highlight the marketing value of an EI rating to producers as a way to demonstrate that they are catering to this demand, while simultaneously allowing consumers to make informed decisions and reduce their carbon footprint.
If they enhance the information on the packaging, people will buy their products and they will therefore make some money from it. But the government could encourage it once it got started.
At the moment, farms undergo a myriad of inspections and audits. This process could be simplified by combining them under a single governing body and utilising modern technology such as satellite imagery, with the addition of a comprehensive environmental inspection allowing accurate and fair calculation of an EI rating. EI is a solution that does not say no to eating meat. Rather, it is a solution that will help you make a more informed choice about the meat you wish to consume. In this way, significant progress could be made against global warming with the introduction of the EI system.